Thank you so much for being here today, Jeremy.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to it.
So let's jump right into the deep end. You've
All
led
right.
people through literal combat zones, but much of the work that you do now focuses on kind of the inner battles that we face, like identity, purpose, pain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what have you learned about the war that happens after the war?
What's interesting. So I was in the United States Marine Corps. I was an infantry officer, and for me, that was the pinnacle of my existence. It's the only thing I'd ever wanted to do, and I say this sincerely. Like I felt like blessed to be able to not only be a Marine, but to be an infantry Marine. And
Mm.
then when the wars in Afghanistan and then Iraq started, our unit was going to go to Afghanistan, then we weren't, and I just felt let down, like my life was a waste, right? I was 23 years old or whatever, because that's all I had ever wanted to do. Well, a year later, 2 years later, we ended up in Iraq, and I was part of the initial push into the country in
So is my
2003.
husband. What if you guys know each other and we're on the same thing?
Interesting.
I'll have to ask. Well,
Yeah.
I'll have to give
Well,
you all each other's names at some
yeah.
point.
Let's connect. There were. I always joke there were only about 30,000 of us there, but there were about 30,000 of us there.
Yeah.
But I was with First Battalion, Fifth Marines, and so the history lesson here is if you go back to the beginning, March 19th of 2003, Third Infantry Division of the Army, Fifth Marines, and Seventh Marines all, excuse me, moved from Kuwait into Iraq, and I was part of that center axis of advance and made our way to Baghdad. And again, for me, that was the Super Bowl, right? That's the thing we had always been talking about and preparing for, the only thing I'd ever wanted to do in my life. And due to a lot of life situations, circumstances, a wife and kids, and really, I thought God was leading us out of the Marine Corps. The timing worked out so that Iraq happened. We came home from Iraq. Again, the only thing I'd ever wanted to do. And then 30 days later, I was completely out of the Marine Corps and I was working on a church staff in Oceanside, California. It's the church that we had attended while I was at Camp Pendleton. And so in that process, again, I could tell the whole story and I won't, but in the process, I kind of lost myself. Not kind of, I lost myself. And I talk about it in terms of identity. That's a word that you used a minute ago. Everything I had ever wanted to be was a Marine. I've said that several times already. My life from 14 years old, when I told my parents that's what I was going to do until I did it, that's what my whole life was focused on.
Uh-huh.
I loved the job. I loved the uniform. I loved the history. I loved the tradition. I loved what I got to do and the people that I got to do it with. And now I was completely separate from that. And I was working in a church, which should be a great environment to work, right? To like a nice soft place to land. And became very frustrated. That frustration led to anger. That anger played itself out in me doing everything short of, physically abusing my wife and kids. Really should have lost my family at that point. Didn't, by the grace of God. I did almost get fired from my first job on a ministry staff, which is crazy, right? It's not easy to do. I almost did.
That could take some doing, Jeremy.
Yeah, yeah, it's something most people can't do. It's kind of built into the church thing, but yeah, my pastor called me into his office after about a year and said, "You're so disruptive here. You're not helpful at all. That you need to find somewhere else to go."
Can you say more about so disruptive in what does that look like?
So I took this feeling, this belief that the people around me don't understand real life. I had been to combat. I had been in the Marine Corps. I'd done all of these things, and they don't know really who I am or what I've done or what I've experienced. I'm sitting in staff meetings at the church with guys whose kind of life experience, not to minimize it, but their life experience was growing up in a Christian home, going to a Christian college, going to seminary, and now working at a church. And so they're making decisions based on kind of that worldview. And I would literally, so I came from the infantry world, which is, if you have a problem with a coworker, you kind of scream at each other and you work it out, right? Like it's not complicated. Well,
Just
the
keep it
the
real
first
simple, guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the first staff meeting I was in church, I tried to do the same thing. It turns out they don't do things the same way there, right? Um, and so it was that. It was just me constantly pushing back, constantly creating just chaos and telling people I thought they were stupid and I thought their ideas were stupid and just I was hurt and for some reason I thought that I needed to take it out on everyone else. Um, and looking back, people have said, well, what was that? Was it post-traumatic stress? Was it, a lot of these other issues that we talk about today? It's 2003. No one was talking about these issues. And I'm sure there was some combat trauma. That was a part of that. And I think a lot of that was baked in. But honestly, I think it was just a complete loss of identity. I had no idea who I was. I didn't know how I fit in. And if you don't know who you are, then you don't know why you're there. So I had no purpose. And so I just made it my purpose to make everyone else miserable. And um, man, until people stepped into my life that I trusted and could confront me, that's that's how I lived. And it was not great.
Yeah. So what is that? Where was that turning point to where? Because what you're talking about is, again, for the people who are listening who've never been to war, there are you can relate to. I could even relate to when I left my career, when I transitioned down to South Texas. So
Right.
much of my identity, right? So many people,
Right.
whether it's
Right.
your career or a
Right.
relationship, when we are so defined by something, it can feel like
Yeah.
we have lost, literally lost ourselves. So what was the turning point to where you started to look somewhere else? If your identity was not in the Marine Corps
Yeah.
that you were no longer in,
Yeah.
where did you go?
So I had some people, again, people that I trusted, people like my dad, a couple of older men at the church who
Hmm.
saw that I was just spiraling and had no problem like getting in front of me and getting in my face and saying, dude, you're out of control. You need to get control of this.
Hmm.
So I had those people that I did respect. And this is important to say. I was in a good family situation. Excuse me. I was in a good like church community, so I had the right people around me. My extended family, we have a great relationship. So a lot of people who are struggling through what I struggled through don't have any of those things.
Right.
And
You
so
did not have a
when
high ACE score, is what you're telling us, Jeremy.
right,
Uh-huh.
you're right. Yeah, that's right. And I did. And so when those people stepped into my life, it was easy for me to respond well, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
because these are people I did have a good relationship with. I knew they loved me. I knew they cared about me and cared about my family. And so first of all, it was the confrontation. It was you're out of control, and regardless of how you feel, there's no excuse for the way you're treating everyone around you. So let's just establish that. And so that was one thing, right? That was the first time I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, this isn't everyone else's problem. This is my problem. Now, it wasn't my problem to solve on my own, but I was the issue, not everyone else. And I was making everyone else. It was my wife, it was my little kids, it was my coworkers, it was everyone else in my life was the problem. And so the first step for me was someone saying, it's not everyone else, it's you. Now, they weren't abandoning me. Again, important to
Mm-hmm.
say, they helped me walk through that. But when it comes to identity, and this is so important, and this is why faith is so important to me. Our identity needs to be in something that is kind of the theological word would be immutable. It's unchangeable. It's something that doesn't shift based on where we were, where we are, or who we're with, or what uniform we're wearing, or what job title we have. Our identity needs to be found in something. And for me, it's in a relationship with God. God doesn't change. And so the fact that God doesn't change and my identity is a child of God and someone who lives to, point others to Him, if that's my identity, then whether I'm doing that in the Marine Corps or not in the Marine Corps, as a father or not as a father, the situation, the circumstance, none of that matters as it relates to my identity. And so once I established that, and again, that was a lot of people speaking into my life, helping me, really get a hold of that. Then I was able to move through the feelings, the emotions, the losses. 7 months after I came home from Iraq, my unit deployed back to Iraq. They were in the first Battle of Fallujah. And, I'm sitting in a place that I hate with people that I don't like, very frustrated, very angry. And I'm hearing about these young Marines that I had served with and had deployed with being killed in combat, and all these things are happening. And so that hit me, very personally, but understanding my identity, I'm able to deal with those situations and those feelings and changing circumstances because who I am is
Did you
not
hear my
wrapped
dog
up
bark?
in what's
I just
yeah.
talked about that.
I love it when even animals respond well
He's
to
like,
what's being said, right?
preach, Jeremy, is what he was saying. Uh-huh.
But when your identity is not wrapped up in circumstances or
Hmm.
situations, then um, you're able to get that solid footing underneath you that allows you to build, a life really from there.
Yeah. So I can't help but ask, like, for the people who are listening, because I imagine you do a lot of speaking, you have books, you go
Yep.
around and talk. For somebody who maybe doesn't have the same faith walk that you have, how do you have that conversation? Where do you tell them to go for that connection to the stuff that transcends the
Yeah.
changing circumstances?
Yeah. So the conversation around faith is depending on the setting, right? So I'm a Christian, and in our program, we talk about the Christian faith. And so what that means specifically within the context of Christianity. But I have the opportunity to speak in a lot of places, active duty military bases, various conferences, police departments, fire departments, all these things. And so faith can take a very broad meaning.
Yeah.
Faith means really, or having a life of faith or perspective of faith is putting your confidence in someone or something that's outside of you. I mean, that's as
Mm-hmm.
basic as I can say it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like to kind of define hope this way, and faith is tied to that. Most of us stand in the circle of our own world. We're the center of the world that we stand in, and there's a circle drawn around us. And when we look down, all we see is what's in that circle. Well, hope comes when we lift our eyes from that circle that we're standing in and we understand there is someone, something outside of my circle.
Mm.
And for me, that's God. And I can put my confidence in God because God is not in my circle. So the brokenness, the hurt, the chaos, the whatever that's happening in my world, there is God who is outside of my world, and that's who I put my faith and my confidence in. So, to your question, where would I point someone to? Um, it depends on the conversation, I guess, and the setting, but I would say at least start exploring faith.
Mm-hmm.
Start thinking about who you are and who you are as it relates to the world around you. Do you really believe that you are the center of the universe and you are the center of the world? And if the answer is no, then we need to start walking through that. Well, what does that mean? And again, depending on the context, I'll send people to a church or have people open a Bible and start reading. And I've told a lot of people, look, if you start reading and you're sincere and honest about it, and you have a notepad and an open mind and an open heart, I'm not afraid of what you're going to find there. I believe you'll find what you need. And
Mm.
so, really, it is, if someone has no context at all, it's beginning the exploration of faith. And I believe that God will reveal the truth to us as we walk through that.
Yeah. So what do you do? So step one piece of this was um choosing a different place to go to for your identity, right?
Yep.
That was one piece of it. And then what about all the pain? Like you said, you're like, once I kind of regrounded or recalibrated,
Mm,
then the pain was able to come and go. So
yeah.
what was that journey like?
There are a lot of steps to that. Again, I think, and you know this from the work that you do, it depends on who I'm talking to, right? But for me, it began by, I mean, honestly, and it sounds overly simplistic. It began by just accepting responsibility for what I had done, what I had said, and who I had hurt.
Hmm.
Understanding that the people that are close to me, the ones that I had hurt because I was hurting, they wanted to have a relationship with me. They had worked on that relationship. They stayed when no one else would stay. And I needed to start by just accepting the responsibility for what I had done. And that's going to those people and asking for forgiveness.
Mm,
It's acknowledging that I am the one who has done the hurting, not
mm,
because of my situation, not trying to justify why,
mhm,
but just
mhm,
owning it and accepting it. That was a big part of it for me.
mm,
And then honestly, the, dealing with pain, and all of us hurt different, and all of us have to process that different, and all of us experience that different. And a lot of the people that we work with through our programs, their pain didn't start in combat. It started in childhood, and they brought that into uniformed service. And then whatever trauma they dealt with there blew that up. It exacerbated what was already present. And now they're dealing with layer after layer after layer of pain and brokenness and hurt. And so for me, once I accepted responsibility, the next thing was to sit down with people that could actually help me and
mhm,
realize like I don't need to figure this out on my own. And whether that's counselors, it's pastors, it's mentors who have done this before, they're further down the road and they can help walk you through that. You can't deal with this on your own. And so then you start to navigate that. And then, right, next, you're able to put in context because you have someone helping you, put in context the reality that unfortunately, trauma is not reserved for veterans. It's not something that is unique only to those who served in combat. And trauma, brokenness, hurt, pain, that's a part of life. It's a part of life. It's something we all have to deal with. And so at the crossroads or maybe the intersection of that, we get to decide, am I going to use this to grow and to learn and to help others, to serve others? Or am I going to let it cause me to be bitter and angry and hateful and all of the other things that I've already become? And so it's again having someone put the right perspective on it. some of that, and we do this in our program, is giving a platform to talk about it. As I take it out of my head and out of my heart and bring it out into the light, things start to find an order that they don't have in my own heart and mind, right? It's brokenness, it's hurt, it's chaos. And then I start to bring it out and it starts to find its order. And then I have people around me that love me and can help me process through that and work through that. The last part is just understanding that it's a long process. It's not a funny story, but it's kind of funny. So my wife and I do a lot of marriage speaking together. And a couple of years ago, we were at a marriage conference, large marriage conference. We're both standing on the platform, we're talking, and we had talked about what we were going to say and who's going to say what and all those things, right? And so I told a little bit of the story that I told you just a minute ago, and I said, and it took me about a year to really get past this. And she stopped in the middle of that in front of a very large audience and said, looked at me and said, yeah, it took us about 10 years to really get through that.
Uh-huh.
And that was the first time, I mean, we'd never had that conversation, right? And that was the first time she had talked about that. And that led to a lot of other conversations about things I just wasn't aware of, kind of in her heart and life. And so it's a long process. And there are still times, now where I, for whatever reason, will go back to feeling some of the same feelings and having some of the same thoughts. But now I have the tools and the people and the experience, the time to process those and move past them. So it's accepting responsibility. It's apologizing where you need to apologize. It's getting the right people in your life that can help guide you through how to feel and how to move forward. It's making a decision. What am I going to do with this? Am I going to grow or not? And then it's just taking the time that's needed, not expecting anything to happen overnight.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying the process it takes because so many people we want a quick fix. Like,
Yeah,
what are the three
100%. Yep,
steps? Can
yep,
give me
yep.
6 weeks and we're there. And there are things, but the other thing I want to highlight in you saying that is, yes, there were probably early wins. There were big things that happened, and also it continues. Like
Right.
like for you, you're like it was a year and things were great, and your wife was like
Yeah.
10, actually, friend,
Yeah,
10,
not so much.
right? It is right, but the call out there is for sure there were massive changes that happened in
Right,
that 1 year, for sure inside of you, right? And
right.
also, even when we go through growth and transformation and healing, there's so many layers to it. And I think
That's right.
sometimes people can get frustrated with that. And so the thing that I appreciate is you sharing it, but also calling out, yeah, and when it happens now, or again, year 1 versus 5 and 10 in that process, I
Yeah,
promise you look different because you were like, I have tools now. I
right.
might not catch it immediately, but when I do, now I have
Yep.
something that I can turn to and use it. So we don't like stop being human when we go through these growth and transformation processes, but we do become more resourced and equipped.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's right. It's funny. I'll talk to guys that'll come through our program. Our program is 5 days long. We work with veterans and service members, and we address a lot of these things. And so in that 5 days, a lot of times the service member will make a decision to get back up, to do the right thing, to move forward. And then you call them or talk to them 3 weeks later, and they're like, "My wife is not on board, and this isn't working." And it's like, look, bro, it took you years to get
Uh-huh.
here. It's not going to take you 3 weeks to get out of it.
Yeah.
And so you have to be committed to the process. And that's to your point, is it is a long process. There are wins along the way. There are good times, and you'll see more good times than bad times as you continue on, but you've got to stay committed to the process.
Yeah. And that was the other word that stuck out in my 6 steps to the freedom formula that I like to work on finding freedom is stay. And what
Yeah.
I specifically talk about is
Yeah.
stay with the emotion, right?
Mm,
Which something I want to call it is like you said, when you had people who could stay for you, that supported in you staying for you, right?
right.
Not
Right.
only in feeling the
Right.
feelings, but also in staying with ownership and accepting responsibility. That can
Right.
be hard. And I know we hear this a lot in, especially in like the trauma world, that, you're not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do from here. And
Yes.
that can sometimes be a tough pill to swallow, especially when there's a lot of hurt and anger.
Yeah.
But both and it's a very liberating pill to swallow
Yeah.
because you can't change what happened to you, but you for sure can
Yeah.
change where you go now. And
That's
that's
exactly
powerful.
right. Yeah, no, it's great. And, I always say how you got here is far less important than what you do next.
Yeah.
And that's a truth we just have to get our hands around.
Mhm.
Maybe I did get myself here. Maybe I'm
Mhm.
experiencing these things because of dumb decisions and whatever. Maybe I didn't. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. We spend so much time going, how did I get here? Let's talk about that later. That's a later conversation.
Mhm.
Right now, let's figure out what we do next.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
I like that. How you got here is far less important than what you do next.
Yeah,
That's okay.
that's it.
Because self-forgiveness can be super hard.
Mm,
And so I wasn't intending to ask you that, but tell me about like what role did that play, if any, like just the forgiveness process
yeah.
in your journey?
So forgiveness is huge, obviously. There are several different ways, I guess, you can look at forgiveness and understand forgiveness. And kind of in the counseling world, we talk about forgiving yourself. And I understand what's meant by that. It
Mhm.
is you need to let yourself off of the hook, what we just talked about. You're not responsible for how you got here. Maybe you are responsible. It doesn't matter. You have the ability to move forward. And I understand the concept of self-forgiveness. But that can also, and this is me talking, that can also be a powerless place to sit where I have to forgive myself. Again, going back to faith,
Mm.
um, the Bible teaches us that God has forgiven us. Well, that's way bigger than me forgiving myself.
Mm.
Understanding, if we do the context of Scripture, that God made us and we sinned, we rebelled against Him, and He did what He needed to do to offer forgiveness through Jesus. So if I can get a hold of that, if I can step back in my life and go, okay, so God forgives me, then why can I not accept the forgiveness of God and understand not only did He forgive me, but He sets me free in the context of that forgiveness to move forward. And so to me, that's a bigger view of forgiveness than just me, like, can I forgive myself or not? And emotions get mixed up in that, and so much is wrapped up in that. And I understand the principle, but I try to step back and go, if God forgave me, then what in the world am I hanging on to?
Mm.
Let's just move forward.
Yeah. Well, then we're talking about surrender. That's a whole nother
Right.
conversation. Can,
Sure.
can I,
Sure.
and yeah,
Sure.
can I let go?
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And again, can I let go? The answer may feel like no. Can I surrender? Maybe I don't want to. We all know the emotions that are wrapped up in I know what to do. I don't feel like it. We have to be able to take inventory of our lives and understand there are real people that are really going to be impacted if I don't take these steps. So whether I feel like it or not is not relevant. What needs to happen is take the next step, not all the steps. Take the next one, and then take the one after that, and take the one after that. And if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your children, do it for your spouse, do it for the people in your community or your world that are also struggling, that are looking to see, hey, are they going to make it? Because if they're going to make it, I can make it. And if not, then I don't know. How you feel is so much less important than what you're willing to do. And if you're not willing to do it for yourself, then do it for others. And so that idea of surrender, man, it is huge. It's so hard. It's so hard, and I don't want to. Man, there's so much wrapped up in that. And what if? And dude, take the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Take the next step, and don't call it surrender if you don't want to. That's what it is. But take the next step and continue moving forward.
Yeah, take the next step. And sometimes I like to say 10 seconds of courage,
That's
right?
it.
That's like really
That's
what you're
it.
like, if you can just feel that
Yep.
discomfort of
Right.
10 seconds of, because you kind of hit on it. We're like, we want to see 14 steps. We want to see
Yes.
637 steps,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Before we're
Right.
willing to take that next step.
Right.
So if we can take 10 seconds of courage, you take that one next step, and
That's
then
good.
you're going to see something, you have a different vantage point. You're going to see something
Right.
different. The next step will reveal 10 seconds of courage. Huh. Even if one of my colleagues says gag and go, she's like, it's going to filter. You just gag and
Yeah.
go sometimes to
That's
take that
good.
next step into courage.
It's
So
good.
tell us then where this, let's talk about the purpose piece of this, right? Because your
Mm,
identity and purpose was wrapped up in
yeah.
one thing, and then that's lost, and then your world's upside down.
Right.
How do you find purpose, or how do you guide people to find purpose?
So your identity and your purpose are intertwined. You can't have one without the other, and the one is going to lead to the other. In fact, when we talk about suicide and suicide prevention, which we talk about a lot in the context of the veteran world, I believe that often we're trying to deal with the consequence of a lack of identity and a lack of purpose instead of getting back to the root. So it's a fruit versus root situation. We're trying to talk people out of hurting themselves and explain to them why they shouldn't, when really what they've lost is identity. And if they don't know who they are, then they don't know why they're here. And if they don't know why they're here, that's purpose, then there is no hope. And so the natural conclusion of that is to say, well, if there's no hope, then there's no reason to continue.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so, in order to have purpose, you need to have identity. When my identity was wrapped up in my Marine Corps work and the job that I had, my purpose was clear. My purpose was to lead Marines and to accomplish the mission and to do the thing. It was so clear. And then I stepped out of that and I lost my identity. When my identity became about God, it became about something bigger than me, then I had to ask the question, all right, if this is who I am, a follower of God, and I believe that my purpose is to live a life that honors Him and that points others to Him and all these things. Okay, well then what's my purpose? My purpose is to do that, right? I was created with unique gifts and talents and opportunities and unique platforms. I'm uniquely created, and so my purpose is to, within the context of my identity, is to live that out. Take what God has given to me, those gifts, talents, abilities, whatever, opportunities, take those and live those out. And as I do that, again, the context doesn't matter, the job doesn't matter, the work is not as important as wherever I am doing that with my kids as I'm raising them from infants to adulthood. It's using everything that I've been given to make them the best human beings they can possibly be so that someday, and I have two adult kids, now they're out there doing their thing.
Mm.
I've worked to equip them to be all that they need to be. If it's in a work environment, we have an organization, so we have a lot of employees. My job is to use everything that I have to equip them to be the people they were created to be and to accomplish the things that they're supposed to do. And on and on. And again, that's not tied to a particular organization or role. It's just saying wherever I am, my job, my identity says, okay, use what you have been given by God to the fullest possible extent to help others. And once we're clear on that, it again, it changes the whole conversation.
Yeah, and I'm hearing it's like the Mel Robbins for her TED Talk, like the chances of you being here are 1 in 400
Right,
trillion.
right,
Like
right.
400 trillion with a T, that gets me every time, right?
Yeah.
But then you hit on something that I think because our eyes look outward, sometimes it's hard for us to look inward, and that's
Mm,
really what you're hitting on is that you have to be curious about yourself. Right. To
sure,
like what you're saying, like you
sure.
have to be curious about what are the talents and
Right,
gifts that I have.
right.
But a lot of times when we think of purpose, there's so much programming and conditioning and like what was my dad told me I was supposed to be a doctor and a lawyer and a right or
Right,
whatever, corporate,
right.
and we're focused on what's gonna make the revenue goal. And then that I think that's another reason that sometimes people feel kind of rudderless when they're feeling like, what is my purpose? I've spent so much time looking at what I think I'm supposed to be.
Mm,
It does take an inward shift to see what have if you're saying like here are all of the tools you were given, like I gotta
yeah,
look in the toolbox. Like, I have
yeah,
to get to
yeah,
know
yeah.
myself and see what are those unique talents and
Mm,
gifts. And that can be hard. Like when we're humble or we have insecurity or worthiness
yeah.
stuff, we're not able to see those gifts and talents to then go out and express
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, and we're afraid to use them sometimes. I'll talk to people and I'll say, "What are you uniquely qualified to do? What's something that you do better than the other people around you?" Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's a gift. What's something that you enjoy doing, even if it's not your job, it's not your vocation, but
Hmm.
not sitting down and watching TV, right? Like something that you enjoy doing. You don't mind giving your time and your energy to it. Well, that's unique to you. What is
Hmm.
something that if you had all the money in the world and didn't need to worry about making a dollar, you would say, that's what I would do. That's the job I would do. Well,
Hmm.
all of these things speak to your unique design and
Hmm.
how you're different than me and you're different than the people around you. And so we need to start viewing work, I think, as in our vocation, how we make money as a job. It's something we do, but it's not necessarily an expression of who we are. Now, maybe it is. If you're fortunate to have found a job that can be that expression, certainly it is.
Hmm.
But, we also need to make money to pay the bills and do the things, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
But don't then find your identity in that. Let that be a job that you do so that you have the ability to live out that unique purpose. And, um, I love talking to parents because, sometimes we look at parenting as like less important than so many other things in life. And I think raising a human being to go out into the world is probably the most important thing you can do. Well, you can work a job and provide a house and food to eat, but leverage your unique talents, abilities, and opportunities to do the most important work of raising that child. And
Hmm.
when we start thinking that how we make money is who we are, then we're in trouble. Um,
That's a really good call out. I mean, this is what I work with people on a lot, like again, around purpose and separating out their, yeah, what you do for money doesn't always have to be that, but like so often that's what people are like, what's my
right.
calling? What's my purpose? And what they really mean is like, what am I going to
What
do with my
job? Yeah.
for my job? Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good, and just for those listening to go back and answer some of those questions. What are you uniquely qualified to do? What do you enjoy doing you don't mind giving your time and energy for? And if you had all the money in the world, what would you want to be doing with
Yeah.
your time?
Yeah.
And see what that comes up. And again, permission slip, let it just for a moment be separate from the thing that you think you're going to go exchange
Sure.
time for dollars
Yeah.
for, like the
Yeah.
money and
Right.
job things, just to see what
Right.
comes up.
Right.
Yeah. So in your book, March or Die, that's where you speak to perseverance in the face of hardship. And
Mm.
so I think of this in my work, I tend to work with people who are the high achieving folks.
Yeah.
They're dealing with perfectionist burnout. So they don't always know, like they only know keep pushing, right? And I'm sure that's not not uncommon for veterans to
Yeah.
they just know
Yeah.
keep pushing, and so we don't always know when to know the difference between when is it time to push and when is the bravest or most effective thing to do to
Mm.
like sort of stop, rest, or pivot. So what guideposts or guidelines do you use to
Yeah.
navigate that?
Okay. Well, this is where I probably need a therapist. I actually had a friend call me yesterday. So yesterday, as we're recording, he said, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
I'm watching all the stuff you're doing right now. You're on the road, half the year, and you're doing all these things. I wouldn't be a good friend if I didn't say you might need to slow down a little bit." And that was a helpful conversation, right? So I think the natural tendency for driven people is to overdo it and to say, well, there are more days in the year, and oh, there's a free one. Let me schedule something, and I need to do more. So I think that is the natural tendency of high performing people.
Mhm.
What has helped me, and I can just speak to this personally. What's helped me is working through my list of priorities. What are my actual priorities? And what does that list look like? Not everything can be a priority. I always joke that, when you sit on an airplane and they say well, what do they say on United? I've heard it 10,000 times. Well, service is our passion, safety is our number one priority. I think that's the phrase they use. And every time I hear it, I laugh because if safety was your number one priority, if it really was your number one priority, you'd never pull out from the gate. You just wouldn't. The safest thing you can do with that airplane is keep it on the ground, right?
Mm,
So so I think a lot of us live that way, though. My number one priority is my family. Number one priority is my family. And that's why I spend 80 hours a week at work, right? Like, wait, well, what you're saying and what you're doing, those aren't connecting, right? They're not,
mm,
to me, it's not working. And so what helps me is, several times a year sitting down, I have it here on my desk with a pad of paper and a pen and going, what are my priorities? Listing them out. Um, and then understanding that that list is very important. I have several things I would consider to be priorities: my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my extended family. All of these come before work, then work, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff below that. Well, if I'm not investing in each one of those in a way that reflects where that they fall on that list of priorities, then I'm out of balance. Now,
mm,
this is important. At least it's been important for me. When we talk about balance, we sometimes think that if I have that list of priorities, it means every day I'm giving the right amount of time to those priorities in the right order. That's not how I view it. And again, you may have a different position on this or whatever perspective on this, but I try to look at things as seasonal. I don't mind giving 80 hours a week to work if I know that on the other side of this period of time that's predetermined, it's on my calendar, I'm
mhm.
going to be able to give the right amount of time to my wife and to my kids and to the other areas that are important to me. So I don't think we need to view it as an all or nothing. It's I'm balanced or I'm out of balance. Balance is about being out of balance and pulling things back to where they need to be. But when I started viewing things as seasonal, so my priorities are these things, and I can't give as much time to each one as I would like to every day, but I can over the course of a year. And I like to think of things in 6 or 12 months. Um, Looking at my calendar, well, this is when I'm giving the right amount of time to each one of those areas. My family understands that I have to work a lot. If When I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. If I'm spending time with them when I'm supposed to spend time with them. This is a conversation that comes up a lot for active duty military folks. How can I say my family is my number one priority when I deploy, 6 months every 3 month rotation or 3 month tour? I'm gone for 6 months. How can I make my family my priority? The problem is not the 6 month deployment. The problem is when you are home physically, you're not home mentally, emotionally, and in the other ways relationally that are important to your family. It's not the time you're away, it's the time you're present. And again, we need to start seeing things as seasonal. I do that then, but when I'm here, I am focused on this. That was a
What I'm
lot of
about to
words,
say is
but
going to make me sound like I'm a golfer, and I am not. But I do believe our friend Scotty Scheffler, World One, my husband, my
yeah,
husband golfs a lot, so I'm by proxy. But that's exactly what he talked about. He's like, when I am golfing, I'm golfing, right? Like
mhm,
he's like, this is when people are like, how are you
yeah,
the number one golfer? Like when I'm golfing, I'm golfing. But when I'm with my baby, my new baby, and my wife,
yeah,
don't talk to me. Like this is,
right,
I am.
right.
Yeah, that's super important. And I am with you. I think like the false sense of like the story that we tell of balance and like this
Yeah,
idea that there's balance. I think it's impossible. I mean, that's like the word, like when you think of life and the
it
number
is.
of
It's
things that you're going to
impossible.
do
Yep.
and the type of, it's not like you're going
Right.
to have an evenly cut slices of the pie that they're all going to be even. It's not possible. And I don't think people actually want that, right? So
Yeah,
I think the better question is what you really got to. I think the better question is about alignment. Like, what is it that I actually want? What is actually important to me?
yeah,
Because to your point, when you can identify your priorities and then you are living aligned to those in a way that makes
right,
sense to you,
right,
the portions of the pie, the portions of the time slots feel very different for you. It feels integrated. It feels it I'm going to say it feels balanced, right? You can
right.
because you can be present with where it
Yeah.
is because it's rooted in purpose. It's rooted in your why. It's rooted in something that feels integrous. Is that a word? And like to you, like it
Sounds
feels
like
like
a
it's
word.
it just
Yeah.
feels right. We're gonna just make up words today here on this October 15th as we record this. That's fine. Yeah. So I appreciate that answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a struggle. And again, I think for high functioning people, the natural tendency is to do more, to pile on more, to kind of creep, right? So I have this really bad habit of saying, if someone reaches out to me and say, "Can you be here at this time? Can you speak at this thing? Can you be a part of this?" And I look at my calendar and I'm like, there's nothing on the calendar for that day. I'm going to be in a different state the day before and the day after, but that day's free. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do that, right?
I
Like
really
you
feel
start
like
to
you and my
creep into
husband
these
need to meet each
areas.
other. Y'all
Yeah.
might be brain doppelgangers. I'm like, oh yeah, that day's free. I'm like, did you look what was happening the day
Yeah.
before?
Yeah. And that's the natural tendency. And so you do have to come back like on a regular basis and go, where have I gotten out of alignment
Yeah.
and where am I not doing what I said is important? But that's the discipline. The discipline is coming back and reevaluating. Have I done what I said is important to me?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that that piling on more that's again standard protocol for the high
Right.
driven people, high achieving. But again, usually it's not tapped in like if I was answering my own question, like when do you know that it's time to pivot or pause versus keep pushing is when you are piling on in a way that is not aligned with the priorities. When you're
Yeah.
piling on because of the shoulds or the people pleasing starts coming in or the perfectionist stuff or the fear of what's going to happen if I don't do that, like
Yeah.
then there's a good chance that you might need to pause and
Yeah.
recalibrate, take a look at your priority list and see how can I get closer? How can I start working my way back there?
That's great. That's great.
So, again, you've seen leadership again, like literally under fire, but also figuratively. So, for you, what does leadership look like outside the battlefield? Like when the chaos is on that like
Mm.
emotional, relational, spiritual side instead of the physical side.
I've struggled with an understanding of leadership over the years, and I think part of it was, well, I know part of it was coming through, sports in high school and college, and then going into the Marine Corps and serving in the infantry community. The only strong leadership I had seen was very type A, very aggressive. The loudest guy in the room is in charge. That kind of leadership, right? And that works. It's a way. But I came to the conclusion that that was leadership instead of what it really is a way to do leadership. It's a a way to get things done, but that doesn't define what leadership is. So then I came over into the church world, and I tried to bring that type of leadership in, it didn't work. And what I saw was some people in the church world, they were very much the same, but instead of using the loudest voice and the strongest personality, it was more of a spiritual manipulation. It was kind of like well, I need you to do that because God would really like for you to do that, right? And sometimes that wasn't directly said, sometimes it was, but often that was the implication is we're not really doing what God wants us to do if you don't do these things. And that's not everyone. I'm in church. I I know a lot of good Christian leaders, but a lot of even Christian or what we call servant leadership or spiritual leadership, it kind of comes down to the same thing. It's me getting you to do what I want you to do. And whether I'm using a loud voice or kind of this manipulation on the backside, it's the same thing. The leader is the one who gets other people to do what they want them to do. And so I walked through that and I thought that can't be right. I didn't know why it wasn't right because the people I knew that were doing that were accomplishing things and they had, people working for them and it was going fine, it seemed like. But the people that worked for those type of leaders always struggled personally. They were always looking for somewhere else to go. They would stay in as long as they needed to stay in, but when they had the opportunity to look elsewhere, they did. And so it wasn't a happy kind of leadership. And not all leadership is happy. I get that. You have to make people do what they need to do sometimes. But I struggled through that and worked on a definition of leadership that made sense to me. And what I settled on was this very simple definition of leadership. That leadership is taking people from where they are to where they need to be. So what is leadership defined? Not how is it done, but what is it? Like what is the essence of leadership? It's using those things we talked about earlier, your talents, your abilities, your opportunities, your resources. It's using what you have in your hands, what you've been given to steward over, what's unique to you. It's taking those things and leveraging what you have for other people, the people in your life. And it is using those things to help those people go from where they are right now to where they really need to be. And you have people in your life that could use your influence to go from, they're a low-level employee, but you see some potential in them. And if you'll just leverage your resources, leverage what you have, you can get them into the right training courses or put them into the right mentorship program or give them the right jobs or whatever. And you're taking them from where they are to where they really need to be. As a parent, this is leveraging everything you have for that infant and doing what is age appropriate as you go through the various stages of life to take them from where they are to where they need to be a productive citizen out in the world somewhere. And on, you can see that in, various applications. But it is, to me, leadership is saying, I have this stuff that's unique to me. And this connects to purpose. It connects to identity. You have to know that. It's going back to the introspective, what do I have?
Mhm.
And then looking at the people in my life and asking, how can I use what I have for them? Nowhere in leadership, in real leadership, is me getting people to do what I need them to do or want them to do. Now, maybe in a business setting, and we could talk about that, and there are places where you have to manage people and all that. But true leadership fundamentally is saying, I've got stuff, let me help you with it, which is why you see leaders who are good at this in various settings. And everywhere they go, they're productive. They're the ones that people go to for help. And like, why in the world are they successful everywhere they go? Well, because they don't view leadership as them. It's not about them. It's about the people that they have in their world.
Mm. Well, I think what you're saying there is a really, I mean, it might sound subtle and maybe it's obvious to everyone else, but the difference of getting them from where they are to where they need to be versus from where they are to where I want them to be.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Right.
right.
And I'm thinking, well, that can be simply said, right? But if I'm thinking about in the workplace, right? From where they are to where they need to be. Also, sometimes you're like, this is where they need to be because the job requires it of
Right.
them, right?
Right.
And there can be some sticky areas because they might be, that's not
Yep.
where I want to be,
Right.
right? So let's just like level in a
Yeah.
level of complex,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
even with parenting where you're like, where they are versus
Yep.
where they need to be employed. And the kid's like,
Yeah.
I need to be living my best life or
Yeah.
whatever of freedom. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a couple of things. One is I think people have to want to be led.
Mm.
And every workplace environment that I've been in,
Hmm.
if people are willing to be led,
Mm-hmm.
I have a boss, I have a manager, I have someone that I answer to who's going to leverage what they have for my benefit, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do the job I'm being paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do everything I can to help them. The leader always wins
Yeah.
when they're leading people that want to be led.
Yeah.
Because as I serve them, they're serving the greater purpose, which isn't me, it's the organization, and they're doing the things and they're getting better and they're more creative and they're more engaged. And so when this is working, and it doesn't always work, but
Mm-hmm.
when this is working, it's me investing in you and you investing in the work that we've been called to do. We're doing this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people need to be managed, and that is 100% true. There are some people who don't want to be led. They don't want to be any better than they are. They don't care where they're going. They're there for a paycheck. My job as an employer, if I keep them employed, is to make them do their job. They need to clock in on time. They need to do the thing I ask them to do. They need to hit the bare minimums, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a choice we can make. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think management and leadership are in conflict. I think some people need to be managed when others can be led.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's that. When we're talking about some of these other relationships, like with our kids, leadership, that is me investing in others, helping them go from where they are to where they need to be. That doesn't mean they always like it either. Serving other people doesn't mean they necessarily, like what's happening. And with my kids, I don't care if you want to learn how to brush your teeth or not, you're going to learn how to brush your teeth. You're going to learn how to take a bath, right? And these are young kids, and you're going to learn how to work. It doesn't matter to me if you want to work because someday you're going to have a job, like a real one, where you take care of a family. And so you're going to go out and do stuff in the yard, and then we're going to scale that as we go through, as you get older. And so sometimes me investing in the people around me, realizing it's not about me, means I'm willing to put up with a little bit of hurt and some back talk and some pushback and all those things because it's not about me. My job is to help these people, and in this case, it's my children, go
Mm-hmm.
from where they are to where they need to be. But just like in a workplace, at some point, they're going to have to decide what they do with that and if they want to be led. And sometimes I'm going to have to just manage them.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
but
think what
there's a
you just
decision
said
that's
there of
made.
like don't take it personally. Again,
Yeah.
we say how many times like I am coaching people on that not take it personally. Well, again, it's easier to not take it personally when you are anchored in the belief that it's not about me. Right? Like as a
It-
coach, this is why people can come like I'm going to say the hard things
yep.
because that's my role. Like is it's not about me. Like my number one client is your goal or whatever it is that you're going to work on. Like that's what I'm focused on. And so I might
Right.
have to say hard things to you. And when you get
Yeah.
mad at me, that's okay. I'm not going to take it personally because it was never about me.
And so, when I talk about mentorship, you need to have a mentor in your life. And I'll define a mentor as someone that cares about you personally,
Mhm.
but is not emotionally connected to you. So
Uh-huh.
it's someone who really does care about you. They want to see you
Yeah.
succeed, but
Yeah.
they're not going to feel bad if you blow them off or don't respond or whatever. They'll move on. You have to have that person in your life because they will speak truth. They're not afraid to say the hard thing because it's not about them
Yeah.
anyhow.
Yeah.
Where this gets harder is in a relationship when
Hmm.
I'm trying to lead my kids or
Hmm.
in the context of a marriage relationship, I'm trying to do the same thing, right? I want to help my wife go from where she is to where she needs to be. That doesn't mean I'm better than her. I would hope she would do the same for me. We're
Hmm.
serving each other. When we talk about love, what is love? I think, and I'm taking this way off track here, but love is it's kind of the same, but in a close relationship. If I love someone, what does that mean? It's not about me. I'm doing what is best for the object of my love. That's how I'll define it. Love is doing what is best for the object of your love. So it's not about me. So I will do what is best for the people I say I love, my wife, my kids, my parents, the people that are in my life. And sometimes that means speaking hard truth. That's what's best for them. Not the thing they'll receive the best, but the thing that is the best. And if that is predicated on a lifetime of trust and confidence that you're speaking the truth because you actually do care. I'm not trying to get anything out of them, and they know that because of other conversations and other life situations, then you can walk through that. Um, but yeah, it's a lot easier when you actually are emotionally apart from someone to speak truth.
Right.
That's why
And then
coaches are
I would
important.
say you're blessed though when you have that in the mentorship roles, but also in those relationships where
Correct.
people
Correct.
are like,
Yep.
yeah, I love you. And that means I'm not going to be a bobblehead.
Right.
That means I'm going to
Right.
say,
Right.
right. And if you have two people or however large the circle is, but in this well, example of a spouse relationship, you're like, yeah, I'm willing to say the hard truth, or I'm willing
Right.
to not like sometimes, right, in spousal relationships, like they're asking something, and you're like, yeah, but I know that, yeah, that would make things easier for you, but it's not the growth edge for you. Like I know the thing that
Mhm.
you're working on, and I know the thing you're working through, and it would be easy for me just to like make the
Yep.
change, right? And you're like,
Yep.
yeah, but speaking those hard truths is I like, yeah, if it's not about me, like I can love you enough to sit in the discomfort, to not fix the thing for you, to not take the
Right.
pain for you, to be the person that maybe is the splinter for the thing
Hmm.
that's happening. And
Yeah.
so while it doesn't on the surface maybe look blessed and loving, I would say that is a blessed, those are blessed relationships because that's when you're going to grow, you're going to heal, you're going
Right.
to transform. Yeah.
And that's leadership. I mean, we can use different words. Some of them are interchangeable. They may have different meanings in different contexts, but
Mm-hmm.
it's again, what's my identity? It's about something bigger than myself. What does that purpose look like then on the heels of that identity? It's saying, well, if life is about something bigger than me, then I am simply a steward of whatever I have, whatever that is. And what's great about that is I may be a steward of a lot or a little, right? If I have a high IQ, I've got a lot to answer for. If I have a low IQ, right? I
Mm-hmm.
still need to steward over that, but I don't have to worry about being someone else. I can just be me. And this is what I have. These are the tools I have, as sharp or as dull as they may be, right? It doesn't
Uh-huh.
matter. This is who I am. And so I'm going to take what I am and who I am and use it to the best of my ability to help other people. And that becomes the purpose. And whether that's in a marriage relationship or with kids or at work or wherever, um, that's
Listen,
leadership.
if I could carve out that part right there, like the way you said it was just like so simply and clear, but that is so important what you were saying there, that I am a steward of what I have. We spend
Right.
so much time trying to get, you're like, well, somebody else though has a hammer in theirs and they have it,
Yeah.
they have this to like,
Yeah.
right? And like theirs is sharper than mine. That is not the point. Take what you
Right.
have,
Right.
right? Like the Arthur
Right.
Ashe, right? Like do what you
Yep.
can with what you have, right? Like
Yep.
that is your whole job. Steward over what the tools you have.
That's it. That's it.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, well, before I ask you my very last question, Jeremy, please tell the
Yes.
listeners where they can connect with the work that you're doing out in the world.
Yeah. The best place to find me, best place to find anyone is on social media. So just
Mhm.
look up my name. You'll find me on all the platforms.
Mhm.
I'm most active on Instagram, and we put a lot of content out there that I hope will be helpful. And that's how I view that. It's just to put out content that will be helpful. So check that out. The work of Mighty Oaks, you can find it going through social media. You can find the links there, but it's mightyoaksprograms.org, mightyoaksprograms.org. We work with veterans, service members, first responders, and have a wonderful program for that. So check us out.
Amazing. And then for my very last question, what does it
Yes.
mean to you, Jeremy, to live an unblocked life?
To me, to live an unblocked life is to be clear on my identity, to be clear on my purpose, and to take steps every day to move toward that purpose. There are a lot of reasons to stop moving forward. There are a lot of reasons that I can look at and say that's the reason, or those are the reasons that I shouldn't accomplish today. Um, but an unblocked life is saying, this is who I am, this is who I was created to be, this is my purpose, and I'm going to take the next step to accomplish that thing.
Yeah. Period. Simply put. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Jeremy. This was very enlightening for me.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.